Today, we're diving into a really profound one, a book that's as challenging as it is brilliant. Søren Kierkegaard's 1849 masterpiece, The Sickness Unto Death. It's a cornerstone of what we now call Christian existentialism.
So right from the get-go, the title hits you with this paradox. It's actually a quote from the Gospel of John talking about Lazarus. Jesus says, "This sickness is not unto death." Now you think that's a good thing, right? But Kierkegaard flips it on his head and makes us ask a really unsettling question. What could possibly be worse than a sickness that ends in your death?
And here's a key detail. He published this book under a pseudonym, Anti-Climacus. Kierkegaard imagined this author as a kind of idealized Christian, someone speaking from a place of perfect faith. And that perspective is absolutely crucial for understanding the deep spiritual diagnosis he's about to lay out.
See, for Kierkegaard, physical death isn't the end of the story. It's just a transition. The real horror, the sickness we should actually be terrified of, is a spiritual one. It's this state of endlessly dying without the release of death. You're trapped. You can't escape the torment of your own self. It's the soul itself that's sick.
So what is this sickness, this condition that's worse than death? Kierkegaard gives us a single powerful word for it: despair. This is the sickness unto death that he's going to diagnose for us.
Okay, so to really get what despair is, we first have to tackle Kierkegaard's idea of the self. And fair warning, this is famously a bit of a mind-bender. He says the self is a relationship that relates back to itself. I know, it sounds like nonsense, right? But what he's getting at is that your self isn't some fixed object. It's an active, living process, something you're always creating.
Let's break that down. A healthy self is basically this incredible balancing act. On one hand, you're a finite being, stuck in a body with limits. But on the other hand, you have this infinite side, your imagination, your spirit, your dreams. The self is also a mix of what's necessary, the facts of your life you can't change, and what's possible, all the things you could become. A healthy self holds all these things in tension.
And this quote right here, it nails what happens when that balance gets thrown off. Despair is what happens when you're out of sync with the power that created you. For Kierkegaard, that's God. When that core relationship is broken, the self becomes imbalanced, and you, in a very real way, lose yourself.
But here's the thing. This sickness isn't a one-size-fits-all problem. Kierkegaard acts like a brilliant doctor for the soul, and he identifies three very distinct forms, or faces, of despair. Each one has its own unique symptoms. He maps out this kind of progression based on your level of awareness. It all starts with being completely unaware you're even in despair. Then it moves to being unwilling to face up to your true self. And it all culminates in this state of active defiance against your own existence. First up is what he calls inauthentic despair. This is the person who is completely lost in the day-to-day worldly stuff. They are their job title or their social status or their online persona. They're so wrapped up in all the external things that they've totally lost touch with that deeper, eternal part of themselves. The tragedy is they're in despair, and they don't even have a clue.
Then we get to the second form, the despair of weakness. And here, the person is more aware. They know they have a true, authentic self. But honestly, the thought of actually becoming that self with all the responsibility that comes with it, it's just too much. So they try to escape it, either by just getting lost in the trivialities of life, or by retreating into a fantasy world of infinite possibilities. Anything to avoid being the person they were meant to be.
And finally, we get to the most intense, most conscious form of despair. Kierkegaard calls this one demonic. This person is fully aware of their self and of the power that established it. But instead of accepting it, they rage against it. They defiantly try to be their own creator, to build a self from scratch on their own terms. It's a total, conscious rebellion against the very foundation of their being.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the sickness. It all sounds pretty grim, I know. But Kierkegaard doesn't just leave us in this dark place. He wouldn't be much of a spiritual doctor if he didn't also prescribe a cure.
And the cure is faith. Now, for Kierkegaard, faith isn't just about believing a certain set of ideas. It's not an intellectual thing. It is the direct, active antidote to the poison of despair. It's the only thing that can bring the self back into balance.
So what does this state of faith actually look like? Well,
Remember that crazy complex definition of the self? Here it is again, but this time it's healthy, it's working. The self is actively engaging with itself, and it's willing to be itself. And the most important part, it does all this while resting transparently in God. That means fully accepting where you came from, your foundation, and finding an incredible peace in that connection.
So, you might be wondering, why are we still talking about this super dense, nearly 200-year-old book? Well, it's because his analysis of what it means to be human, all the anxiety, the search for identity, for meaning, it's just as relevant today as it was then, maybe even more so.
And the book's influence is just incredible. I mean, his ideas were foundational for major 20th century thinkers like Sartre and Heidegger. But you can also see his fingerprints all over pop culture, from the deep psychological struggles in the anime classic Neon Genesis Evangelion to the spiritual crises you see in movies like First Reformed. It's everywhere once you start looking.
So, if you take one big idea away from all of this, let it be this. The path out of despair isn't about checking out of life. It's about diving in more fully and more authentically. It's about embracing all the messy, contradictory parts of your existence and actively, passionately becoming the unique person you were created to be.
And that really leaves us with a huge question for our own lives, doesn't it? In our world, which is just overflowing with distractions and pressure to be someone else, Kierkegaard's challenge is more urgent than ever. What does it actually mean to shut out the noise, look inward, and truly be yourself?